Hey guys, this is Jordan from Team J's Classroom Fun, and I'm excited to be back with you today with a new series about literacy stations. Before I get started, make sure you like and subscribe and click that bell so you don't miss out on any future content, especially with this series. Literacy stations are something that are near and dear to my heart. I've been using them honestly most of my teaching career, so almost 17 years, and I have found them to be such a great way for kids to practice ELA skills while also providing me the opportunity to work with a small group. So today I'm going to be going over some of the basics, and this will be a series, so there'll be a lot more to this. So make sure you stay tuned and watch the future videos. To get a peek at what's coming up, like I said, today is going to be an introduction. The next video will be about station setup, how to set them up, what to do. The next one's will be about the management. So I'll go over some management boards and also some ideas about how to like group students. And then it's going to be station ideas. Now, these station ideas are literally like ideas you can take and run with. So for these station ideas, it's going to give you ideas for a reading station, a technology station, fluency, reading response, vocabulary and informational text, spelling, other ideas, teacher time ideas, and more. Literally, guys, these ideas, you literally can take them and implement them in your classroom. So this is kind of almost like a make and take workshop of sorts, but you will be able to take all these ideas and run with them and hopefully find ways that you can use them for your students. So starting off for today, these literacy workstations ideas are based off of two different books. Both of these books are by Debbie Diller, so if you've not checked them out, I highly recommend it. The books are a little bit older, but the ideas are still good, and then you can obviously tweak them to fit like the new technology we have now. First book is Literacy Workstations. This is the one that I primarily used. This one is geared more towards K2. And then the other one is called Practice with Purpose, also by Debbie Diller. And this one's geared towards more like 3-6. Why use stations? So let's talk about why I switched to stations. So stations replace worksheets and they provide kids with hands-on learning, okay? We do not need kids just sitting in a workbook and doing worksheet after worksheet after worksheet while you're pulling a group, okay? This way kids are doing hands-on learning. They're still practicing skills, but it's not just sitting there with a workbook type thing. Since the stations are hands-on, students tend to be more engaged in what they're working on. They also have choice, which leads to higher engagement because they have a say in the activity they're completing. What I mean by that is they might be at a particular station, say they're at reading station, and they'll have 3 choices of what they can do when they're at that station. So they have a set station, but then they have choice in the activity they decide to complete. And then the best thing of all, every activity is going to be literacy based. So even though they have a choice, they're still working on literacy activities during this time. Okay, the main purpose. The main purpose here is to provide literacy activities that the kids can complete independently while you pull small groups. Okay, I know when I pull small groups, it's important that the kids are able to work keyword independently. And that's really important, right? They need to be able to do it on their own so that you're able to focus on the small group you're pulling. Now, you also don't want them just doing fluff activities or activities with no meaning. So that's where, again, this is a big positive because they're actually doing literacy practice even when they're not with you in group. Students in literacy stations are, like I said, are still practicing reading and writing skills, and they tend to be building on concepts they've already learned. Sometimes, too, for kids that are ready, it could be enrichment type activities. The other thing, too, the main purpose of this is to give them some choice, right? This provides differentiation, and they even get to choose, which leads to higher engagement. Oftentimes, there's task cards, I can lists, and different choices that are provided. That way, you can be reaching multiple levels, the different types of intelligences, and things like that. Stations versus center. Okay, now this is going to start a debate of sorts because I brought this up on TikTok last year, and let's just say some people see it differently. Okay, so if you see it differently, that is completely fine. There's more than one way to look at this, and I understand they're just words and they can definitely be interchanged. One of the things that I learned when I first started teaching, so when I was student teaching, my mentor teacher had activities, reading activities, they were centers that we would do each week. And these activities were based on the story and the skills in that story, which meant she had to literally change out 6-7 centers every week with new activities to fit the new story and the new skills. Okay. That is more what we call centers in this situation. And again, you might look at it differently and you might say these are just words. Who cares? That's okay. But centers, like I'm saying with that example, are more teacher driven. You have to change them up often and you have to make copies of worksheets, and it kind of takes the choice out of it. And there's a lot more seat work involved. I actually, my first year teaching, I did do this strategy mainly because it's what I saw student teaching, and it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work to change out 6 or 7 different stations every week. That's a lot. And that's where I started learning about stations. And I was like, I like that this can kind of be evergreen and be used throughout the year with a lot of different things. So in stations, the emphasis is on teacher modeling, and the students are actually taking responsibility for their learning and they're practicing independence. They have more choice in this. And these activities are not necessarily just based on one story, but they're activities that could be used with a variety of things. That way they could be used again and again. For this as well, you have a gradual release of responsibility. And I know this is something we talk about a lot, right? So it's not just going to be like, okay, here's 7 stations. Go, kids. Good luck. Because I'm going to tell you, if you do that, it's not going to go so well. Okay. Unless you maybe have the best class in the entire world. Even then, that would be a little hard. What I highly recommend doing is kind of following these steps to release the responsibility, because if you do it slowly, it's going to pay off in the end. I know sometimes it's hard to go slow and you just want to get things up and running, but if you take your time, I promise it'll be worth it. So they will take a few weeks to get up and running smoothly before you're actually able to pull groups. So the first week or 2 of stations, I don't pull groups. During this time, I'm going around, I'm monitoring, I'm checking in, I'm making sure they understand what to do at the station, making sure management wise that it's working, that they understand the expectations. And so I'm spending a lot of time doing that. But by doing that in the beginning, it then gets the kids more independent and understanding what the expectations are, so that then I am able to pull groups and I'm able to stay with my group and not get pulled to handle situations. Other thing too, I introduced the station task whole group so the kids can practice them before they're put into stations. So for example, for writing station, one of the things I have is comic strips. So at the beginning of the year, one of the days during our typical station time, right, we're not doing full stations, but I said, hey, this is one of the activities you're going to do in writing station. It's called making a comic strip. Let's talk about what this looks like. You need to also include writing, not just pictures, da, 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 da. I'd go over the expectations and then the whole class practices it. So this gives everyone a chance to know specifically what that means when they get to that station. Next thing too, when trying stations out, I start with 1 or 2 and I train them on how they work, and then I add on as I go. So I might get reading station up first because it's one of the easiest ones, and then text station because it's also one of the easier ones. So then I'd have those running, and then I'd add a 3rd one in, and so on. Because if you try to do 4 stations, 5 stations, it's a lot to try to do right at the beginning. You want to kind of ease them and you into it. Key thing here, model, 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 and model again. So one of the biggest things with this too is modeling how you want this to be, what you want this to look, what you want this to sound like. Even things like, okay, when you go to the station, here's what you do. You walk over here, you decide, are you making a book? Are you writing a letter? Are you doing a comic strip? You pick your paper, you go over here, or whatever your expectation may be. But the more you model and practice and have the kids model for each other, it's really going to help you in the long run. Okay, these are also some questions that you want to go over with the students when you're setting up literacy stations. And these are things you want to think about ahead of time. How are the kids going to use the equipment and materials? And this might differ depending on what you have, right? Maybe you have iPads they use. Maybe you have set things they use for fluency. How are they going to do this? How are they going to share the materials? How are they going to take turns? How are they going to use the management board? And the management board is where it shows them where they go. And I'll show you some examples of that in a later video. How they use the task cards, how to solve a problem. Like if something goes wrong, what do they do? Who do they ask for help? And then also how to clean up and put things away. So in addition to these being things to go over with them, these are also some of the things you're going to want to model and practice and discuss to help set up a successful literacy stations rotation type thing. Anyways, that is what I have for you today. Next time, we're going to be talking about setting up literacy stations. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below in the video, or you can also find me over on Instagram at Team J's Classroom Fun, and feel free to leave me a comment or a DM there as well. Anyways, make sure you stay tuned for next time. Again, hit like, subscribe, and click that bell. That way you don't miss the next video. Thanks for hanging out today. Talk to you soon.